His presenter is Sam Cantor. All of you will remember that Sam was with us a month or so ago with his street photography. And we were asking him so many questions and he was explaining everything. And everybody felt we'd like to have him back to get more in depth on his post-processing. So that's what this presentation tonight is about. So without any further ado, Sam, take it away.
Okay, guys. Again, feel free to ask questions at any time. It doesn't have to be at the end. As I said, it's not a set in stone, this presentation. In fact, I'm going to decide as I go along. But I'm going to put share on first, obviously. Can everyone see this photo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a historic day, and this is kind of a historic family photo. This is from 1962. This is Martin Luther King, and this is my father. He's the only white guy in the photo. So you can see. This is in front of his store that he had, a department store in Harlem, which was actually there for generations. This sign is announcing the March on Washington, where Martin Luther King made the famous "I Have a Dream" speech. So I usually post this on Martin Luther King Day, and it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's perfect for today.
Perfect for today. Nothing to do with post-processing. What's interesting is that my father was not really a great civil rights leader, to be perfectly honest. But this guy over here was one of the salesmen in his store, and he decided to make him vice president of the store. And he was one of the first Black executives in the country. And that's why Martin Luther King came.
Ah.
So it was sort of a good PR move by my father. And I don't even remember, this guy's name was Ken somebody. I don't think he really had a lot of influence over the policy of the store, but I don't know. So that's the first photo I wanted to show you guys. It has nothing to do with post-processing. And because of the other historic aspect of today, there's one more photo that I took about 7 years ago, which I just find relevant to today. I hope no one will be offended, but I kind of am in agreement with this guy.
Uh-huh. Me too. Me too.
Maybe not everybody out there, but okay. So now we can get to the post-processing. So here's a whole bunch of photos that I just kind of looked around to see which might be good examples of what post-processing can do. Let's start with this one. So here's a photo I shot by the river. Not very well exposed, not very well composed, but I saw something in it, and it ended up being this.
Wow.
Which is a photo I like very much. So, I mean, don't really have to explain too much of what I did. What do you think I did? Obviously cropped it. I
Turned
converted
it
it
into black and
I
white.
turned it into black and white, and
Dark
work
and
with the light, you know.
background.
That's great.
You know, honestly, this is a while back. I have the history of, to the left in Lightroom. I don't know, for those of you who don't use Lightroom, I have a history of everything I did to this photo. You know, it's crop, highlights, clarity, highlights, exposure, dehaze, more clarity, sharpening, exposure, change the orange level, cropped it again, highlight tones. You know,
Sam,
What did you use to turn it into black and white?
of a picture that you might just say delete, but you found something in it, and of course his expression is priceless. So you turned it into something. I mean, I could see taking a picture like this and be disappointed and then moving on.
Well, I think I mentioned last week, Marlene, that most of my photos you would probably delete when you first saw them, because when I go out shooting, I'm looking for material. I'm not looking for perfect photos, because the nature of street photography is very fast and it's very chaotic. So you have to be able to have an instinct for what might possibly make a good photo. There's no time to compose and frame and get your settings exactly right and get your exposure and no, you're working in a very fast, not all the time. I mean, sometimes you might find a nice background to sit and wait for someone to come into the photo and you can set things up, but that's really not what I'd like to do. I'm out there doing a dance and it's very fast. So the photos out of the camera are not going to be great, but I know what I can do after the fact. So
Now there are so many versions and so many ways to do this. What method did you use to convert to black and white?
oh, pretty simple. There's a button on my keyboard that says V, and that turns it into black and white. It's very simple. It's the same as going to monochrome. I think there's a button on Lightroom that says make it monochrome. But then, yeah, if I hit V now, it turned it to black and white. But then I will start processing the black and white photo as far as in many ways. And I don't use an outside program to do that. I just start working with the light, working with the background. I do a lot of selective processing of everything. I know I could start from scratch with this and give you an idea, although it's interesting. This picture is from quite a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and there's so many new tools in Lightroom now that I use that I probably didn't even use on this photo, so I might even do it differently.
I have Sam, excuse me, I have a question.
Sure,
So you do most of your processing after you convert it to black and white. You don't get the color correct and then convert. So you
I-
convert first and then do most of your adjustments
Most
then?
of the time, I usually know pretty much right away whether I want it to be color or black and white. Although sometimes it's ambivalent. I say, could work as color, could work as black and white, but I'll show you some examples. In fact, let's see. Let me. There was a picture of a kid that was originally in color. Oh, wait, I have to go to this one. Oh, good. Now I'm going to go back to the original. Okay, so this is a picture of a kid in a carriage. Why did I decide to convert it to black and white? What do you think?
Mostly gray and black now.
It's mostly gray and black anyway. The red certainly doesn't help. In fact, it's distracting.
Yeah,
There's no reason to make it color.
yeah.
And there's many examples of that. Although some photos, I'm not sure, the color can help. But now this photo, I had to do a lot of work on it, and it was still a little noisy. And this is one that I did take into, let's see. Yeah, I think I took it into Topaz and made it a little less noisy. Let's see if I can find another example.
Sam, while you're looking, a workflow question. Is
Yeah.
the conversion to black and white, once you decide you want to go black and white, is that your first move in workflow?
Yes,
And then you proceed from there?
yes. I usually decide
Okay.
right away if the colors are going to be an essential part of the photo. But yeah, I mean, but many often, there's this one key that I can hit and I can just look black and white color, which am I going to like? This one's pretty close, but somehow I did like the colors on this. Oh, wait a second. Yeah,
Well,
See, a
that
lot of
leads-
these I did convert into TIFFs, and then when I hit the compare to the original, it's not there anymore. It has to be a ARW file.
You know, last time when you showed your presentation, I was just so impressed with some of the exquisite lighting things. So at least on one of the images, would you be able to show us from the original and each
Yeah.
step you took, at least on one of them to
Let's do
give
it
us
on
an
this
idea?
one. Let's do it on this one. This is, and these aren't necessarily my best photos. They're just ones I chose that I thought could demonstrate some aspect of the processing. Let's go back to the import. And I think what I'm going to do is hit virtual copy here. So I won't be touching it. I'm just touching a copy of it now. Okay, so this is, I don't know, I saw this guy on the street in the cab. The cab was moving, I think. It wasn't an easy shot to get, but it doesn't really work that well, right? So what am I going to do? Well, first thing, straighten it out. There's a button here on my C6 button, straightens things out a little bit. Now I'm obviously going to have to crop it because when it straightened it out, it caused a problem. Right, let me move this over to the left here. Again, I can do everything with knobs and sliders, although there's a bit of a delay now because we're in Zoom. So I'm just going to crop this a little bit. So now it's straight. And okay, that's better. But he's much too dark, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's some of the masking tools that are pretty great. I'm going to go into, now I can do this just by hitting this mask button here. I think because we're in Zoom, because we're screen sharing, maybe I better use the mouse and not use my loop deck that much. Okay, I'm going to select, I hit mask. Can you guys see on the right side of Lightroom here?
Yeah.
Masking, okay. Now I could say select subject, but it may not know what the subject is. So I'm just going to say select an object. And I'm going to draw a little rectangle around this guy's head. And then it'll automatically select his head. See, did you see it do that?
Yes.
I didn't have to draw around it or anything. And of course, you can subtract or add to the selection, but I don't think I need to do it in this case. All right, so now that I have his head, I think I'm going to turn up exposure a little bit and make it a little brighter. Well, that certainly makes a difference, right? If I want to add a little clarity to it, I might do that, a little sharpening technique. These are just things you fiddle around with. But what's great is that I'm just twiddling knobs here and I'm looking at the photo at the same time. It's so much different when you have to look to the right, find the slider, move takes your attention away from the photo. And that's why I love this loop deck so much. I can, and I know, my hands, the muscle memory, know where all the little buttons and sliders are, know where all the knobs are and all the buttons. I hardly have to look at it. So I can keep looking at the photo. And you can see it tells me to make sure, it tells me what I'm doing. See, it says localized exposure on the bottom. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So I know it's doing it correctly. It's localized exposure because I'm in the mask, so it's locally exposing here. So I can get his face to look the way I want. I'll get out of mask.
Where does it show the localized exposure? I didn't see what you were
It's
looking
very
for.
small. I'm not sure that you can see it.
Below the picture.
Down here, below, right down here, localized exposure.
Yeah, I don't see it.
It's very small. I don't even know if you'll be able to see it, but it's
But-
just informing me what it's
Highlights.
doing. It's
Yeah.
also moving the slider on the right. You notice when I turn the knob, the slider on the right is moving to the right. But again, I very rarely have to look to the right because, first of all, it says localized exposure down here, so I don't have to take my eyes off the photo. It's down here. and I'm turning a knob rather than going over to exposure and moving to the right and looking back. So to me, it makes a huge difference. It was a revelation when I bought this console for $200. It made a huge difference. Made it more fun too and more creative. Also, somehow tactily turning a knob just feels good, you know, rather than moving a slider with the mouse somehow. Now, another thing I don't like so much is that this yellow seems a little distracting to me. Now, we could go to black and white, but I'm not loving the black and white
Right.
because the blue sky here kind of looks nice, but I might want to make this yellow a little less yellow. So I'm going to hit this saturation button here. And I love this feature. It's called drag saturation. I don't know if that's the name of it, but you click on this little pointer, and instead of changing the yellow, it figures out what color this is. And when I turn this down, the saturation is going to get less. Now, unfortunately, it is making his saturation change because there must be some yellow in his face as well. So it might be better if I mask this and do but I'm definitely making the saturation less in this taxi because I don't want it to distract. And at the same time, I might want to make this blue a little bluer. Oh, see, it made it a little darker. So just by going into this color point mixer panel, and you could do this with luminance, saturation, or hue. If I did it with luminance, I could make the sky a little brighter, the color of the sky a little brighter. See how it's getting brighter there or darker?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I might just look at the whole photo and say, gee, maybe I want it a little brighter. I don't know, it's looking a little dark to me. Maybe a little more clarity. Sometimes I like to add a little vignette. Oh, we have to get out of this. Wait a second. Hold on. Not doing what I want. Still doing saturation because I didn't get out of this. Better get back into. Get out of the color mixer. Yeah. So I might want to vignette a little bit when the subject is in the center. Sometimes I'd like to vignette, make the sides a little. So this is getting more to be the way I like it. The original was this. Get the idea? This is a decent photo. This is pretty much unusable. So it's really, you know, I would say with all this fancy stuff, mostly what I'm doing is dodging and burning. And sharpening and changing color, but it mostly has to do with the light. And that's why this masking features of Lightroom are so great because they allow me to select anything and change it. Localized processing of any little aspect of the photo. Let's try something else. Now this is a little controversial. I don't know if any of you guys have this feature. If you have Lightroom, you have it. I don't know if it, but it's this removal tool, and it's called generative remove. It's very powerful. I think you have to be careful using it because maybe you're changing the photo too much, and it's really a matter of your own ethics. I've been just having fun with it, and sometimes I think maybe I am going over the line and removing things in a photo that I shouldn't be. I don't know how you feel about that. I certainly would never add anything to a photo, like add a butterfly to someone's head, but can I remove something that's distracting in the photo? I don't know. I think so. And I've done it many times. Let me show you some examples. Well, here's a not a great example. Let's see. This was the
Is it-
original photo. This guy has a tattoo of Charles Manson on his head.
Very fun.
Not something I would choose to do. In fact, I showed this photo, I posted it somewhere, and someone said, well, why didn't you get closer? I was pretty close to this guy. But when a guy has a tattoo of Charles Manson on his head, I don't think you want to like get him too angry, you know? But anyway. But
You know, Sam, that doesn't look like the original because it's on the export. So you must have something below that.
let's see. Let's see. Well, you know, I've made copies of these. Let's see if that is the original.
Also, his left hand looks weird.
Yeah,
Oh, that does look weird.
very
Uh-huh.
weird. Go down to, because history is at what's highlighted the export. So if you went down,
Here comes the, well, see, this was a copy,
oh
a
yeah,
virtual copy. Oh, okay. Well, this is something of an original, although it's a copy. Look, there's this guy here, but I must have taken him out or maybe cropped him out.
Mm.
Well, let me get rid of this thing. Get this out of the way. Let me see. You know, I very often make copies of photos, and then sometimes I even lose the original, which is not a great thing, but I think this is pretty much the original. Why his
Mm.
hand looks weird? I don't, not much light there, I think. You know?
Maybe he
Not
just
sure.
had a weird hand.
They had a weird hand. But let's get
Had-
back
Mhm.
to,
You had a picture in the upper left under Navigator or in that area that it was all in the dark. So it looks like you lightened it up because the left hand was practically totally dark in what you had
Interesting.
shown originally on the left.
hold on. Yes, sometimes there's some confusion because I've made copies of it and there's a few different versions of it. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, so now there's a black and white version. Yeah, well, this is the version that I ended up with. So what did I do? I got rid of the Ewing 33, which I didn't like, right? And I wanted to bring out the tattoos. And I made the background darker. And I wanted this killer's game to be visible. I don't know if you've noticed, but it seemed appropriate that it said killer's game up here, and he's got Charles Manson on his head. So really all I removed here was the Ewing, cropped it a bit, and tried to bring out the light on his shoulders and his head and darken the background except for the killer's game, which I may have made a little more colorful.
How did you darken the background and select what portion of the photo you would darken?
Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the masking tools in Lightroom. Let's create a new mask. Now, I can select subject. Let's see if it does it. Doesn't seem to be doing it. Try
And
again.
yeah,
Strange.
yeah, it is strange.
Why isn't it doing it? You know, it could have something to do because we're sharing and it's delayed. Yeah, let me just go here. Strange. It might have something to do with the screen sharing. It's not letting me, it's not doing it. What if I select the background? See, it says select background, so it should be happening. Well, Well, let's do it with another photo. We don't have to do it with this photo. Let's go back to these. Let's take a look at this one.
That's on 43rd Street.
Oh, yeah.
You just walked out of your apartment.
Most of my photos are taken in this neighborhood, Times Square, Hell's Kitchen. Hold on a sec here. This is the original photo.
Sam, how far were you from this guy? Because that's right in front of our building.
Yeah, right in front of my building. That's a few feet. I'm just walking by.
Yeah.
You know, most of the photos I take, I don't even stop walking. That's one reason people don't realize I'm taking a photo, because I take them as I walk.
Well,
So let's see what I did here.
Wow.
Oh, come on. What's going on here? Yeah, unfortunately, things are a little delayed because it's on Zoom and things aren't really working the way they're supposed to.
oh yeah, it's on 9th.
Come on.
See
The-
what.
Let me go back to the original import. Okay, obviously I did a lot with this photo, right? But let's see if I can use an example. I'll make a virtual copy of it. All right, say I wanted to select this. Now, this is the removal tool, and I'll show you how this works. I did crop it somewhat, but say I don't want to have this guy here. Now, whether it's going to actually get rid of this guy, it's hard to say, but we'll see. So here's the removal tool. Generative AI, detect objects. Make this a little bigger. Let's see if I can get rid of this guy here. I just draw around him in a rough way. Doesn't have to be that. It analyzes it, and I hit remove. Now, sometimes it'll put another person in there, which is really weird because it thinks it's supposed to be a person there. But this time it just got rid of him. Let's get rid of this guy. Should we get rid of the bench or just the guy?
The guy.
Just the guy? Okay.
That's great.
Great. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It figures out what should be behind the thing and removes. See if it keeps the bench there while it removes the guy. Uh-oh, now sometimes it puts something else there, which
The
it's
other
hard to
side.
know why it does that. It thinks, you know, it's artificial intelligence, and it thinks it should be something there, and it won't totally remove things.
Amazing, all the skills that we had to develop to do this manually can now be done with the pressing of a button.
It's amazing. It is totally amazing. Now, again, ethically, is it cool to remove things? I don't know. I think it depends. I've been just enjoying doing it, and I'm still sort of wondering how cool it is. But let's try selecting the subject again here. Oh, it did select him. It didn't show the overlay though. Yeah, okay, so it selected this guy. Now, so I might want to make him a little brighter or darker. I don't know, I didn't really decide what I want to do with him. But then I'll create another mask and I'll say, select the background. Now, this is something I do very often. Bring out the subject, turn the highlights down on the background, or maybe the exposure down. And that's an example of it, what you could do, but he certainly is standing out a lot more. By the way, I think this guy needs to be straightened. So I'm just going to hit this one button. That straightened it for me. I'm going to hit the V, which is black and white. And now I'm going to crop it a little more. And I think I like him a little to the left. Don't love this guy here. Should we take him out? I mean, I never really would have thought of doing these things before, but why not take him out? He's gone. So you get the idea of how uncluttered things can become. Now, again, a big part of street photography is the context. And by taking things out, you may ruin that. So you do have to be really careful doing this. It's not something that you want to be doing all the time. Let me see what happened to my other version of it. Okay, so this is what I ended up with. I think I worked a little bit with the lighting a little more. And maybe I took out some noise, I'm not sure. But, I can work on a photo for an hour. I keep tweaking it. I say, gee, maybe I have to get rid of some noise. Maybe I'll remove that one little thing and make this one little thing a little brighter, this a little darker. I could even I might decide to make his cigarette lighter because I want to bring out a cigarette. Or I might think his hand is too bright. But this tiny little tweaking becomes so important. Like, should we try to make the cigarette brighter? Now, look at all the noise in that photo, but I don't think this is actually the one that I used. But let's just say I want to make this cigarette a little brighter so it stands out more. So I'll go to Objects, and I'll draw a little rectangle around this cigarette. And I'm going to turn up my whites. And let's see how that looks. Well, these are the tiny little things that I love to do. Make the cigarette a little brighter, make his hand a little darker, make the hat a little this, it's like, it's fun, and I really can get the photo to bring out my intent of what I want. So let's see some more here. Another thing which you can do now, which is very powerful, again, can be abused, is background blur. Now, I don't know if you guys have this in your programs, or in Lightroom you do.
Yep.
Are you aware of what it is?
The great tool.
Yeah.
So what it does, let's see if we can do it here. Now, this can save you a lot of money because instead of buying expensive fast lenses where you get this beautiful bokeh where the background is blurred, you don't need to do it anymore. Artificial intelligence will do it for you. So I actually did a lot of work on this photo. Let's see if we have the original. This is a copy, unfortunately. Let's see. Okay, let's go to our original. This is my original photo.
Mm.
Reject, right?
Amazing.
It's a reject.
Absolutely.
And this isn't even the final one, but let's take a look at this background blur. By the way, if you use Lightroom put it on solo mode. So you're only seeing one thing at a time. You don't want to be scrolling up and down through huge amounts of adjustments. So right now, transform is open, but only one thing at a time. I see lens blur here.
Do you put it on solo mode?
Yeah, solo mode I think is up here, so I forgot exactly where it is. But you
You
always
have-
put it on solo mode, so you're not scrolling through all the adjustments, right?
You right click on that panel and a menu pops up and you can check solo mode.
Which panel is it? Is it here?
It's in that panel and you just have to right click in there,
Oh,
anywhere
there it
there.
is. There it is. Yeah, solo mode. See,
Thank you.
saves you a lot of time. So then you're not scrolling, and then you can just find which section you want. Now it's lens blur, and this is very simple.
I have a
All I'm gonna
question.
do is-
Maybe
Go ahead.
Chuck could answer. For those of us who don't use Lightroom, a lot of us just use Photoshop and other things. Are a lot of these things in the new version of
All of
Photoshop?
them. All of them.
Okay.
Everything in Lightroom is in Photoshop.
It's
I
in
would thought,
In fact, probably even more sophisticated.
I had thought that used to be the process. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Lightroom is kind of secondary. But as I said, since they've added these features into Lightroom, I don't have much reason to go into Photoshop anymore. I don't use layers, but it's street photography. If I was doing some other type of photography, I might really want to. So let's look at this lens blur. I'm going to hit apply. Let's see what it does.
I love that panel.
Now it's analyzing. Still analyzing.
Did you make a selection first of something?
No selection. Okay. Now, do you notice how the background is blurry?
Yes.
See the difference?
Yep.
Take it off and put it back. Now, I don't think I like the lens blur on this so much, or too much.
Too much.
Too much. So you can do a little lens blur as much as you want, and it will bring out the subject a bit. You can also refine the blur. Now say, do I want to have this garbage can blurred? Probably. So I'll hit blur here and make a bigger. Brush. That's strange. Why is the brush not getting bigger here? It's weird. Well, anyway, I can paint the blur onto this garbage can. I don't know why my...
What about using,
Oh, that wasn't the brush size. No wonder I was
yeah,
doing blur amount. Yeah, it's a little confusing. Where's my brush size here? Very
Yeah.
often I use this wheel here to change brush size, but it doesn't seem to be working for some reason. So anyway, you can brush blur, and you could also decide how much of the photo is going to be, what part of the photo. By changing this down here, you could decide what part of the photo is going to be in the foreground and not blurred, and what is not been. So there's a lot of control over this, as well as putting things in focus or not. So very useful tool, sort of putting bokeh into the photo after the fact, although very easy to overuse it and want to make all your backgrounds blurry, which is not a great idea, especially in street photography where you want the context, right? But I tend to use it quite a bit. I'll show you an example. I think I may have shown you this photo before. Yeah, this woman here.
Oh, man, that's great.
Now, the original of this, not so interesting. Man, why isn't it showing me all my photos on the bottom? Strange. Oh, I know why. There they are. Where am I? Now that I'm in Zoom, there's all these little windows that are covering things up. Okay. Let's see if we can look at the original of this. Oh, hold on. Come on. Have to go in develop mode to do this.
Yeah,
That's the original. Rejects, huh?
Wow.
Okay, what did I do? Well, I got rid of a few things. I isolated the subject. I changed it to black and white. I put a little background blur there. Let's see. It's still pretty good without the blur, but in this case, I find those people a little distracting, don't you? I kind of want her to really stand out.
Mhm.
And this is an example of one that I actually had to take into topaz sharpening because there was some motion blur on this. See her face? A little blurry. Well, I don't know if you can tell unless I blow it up. There's a lot of noise in this too.
Yeah.
But this is after. Just made her face a little more focused. Can you see difference? Well, blowing it up kind of makes it look weird, but anyway, when there's motion blur, I can put it into topaz sharpen and sometimes it removes the motion blur and makes it acceptable. It makes it, not so soft. So anyway, there's one example of the background blur. Let's see if I can find another example. Now here's one I wanted to show you. Of just removing distractions. The original. The flag's too bright. It's got the other person behind them. There's all sorts of little things in there, Basically, I just removed them. And we have an interesting photo, right? Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Come on. Why did that happen? So how do you guys feel about the removal tool? I mean, removing little spots and things is one thing, right? But how do you feel about removing people?
It's great. I think, as I said, it's an easier way to do, because I know I used to do this all the time and it took hours sometimes.
Oh,
if I
yeah.
wanted to use the picture. So,
Well, I'm more talking ethically. Obviously, you want to remove things that are.
I think as long as you're not passing it off as photojournalism, it's
Mhm.
your picture, you can do whatever you
Well, that's
want
true.
to it.
Yeah.
I was going to say that
Um,
too. Yeah.
A painter paints selectively what he or she wants to be in the picture.
Yeah, it's true, obviously. But street photography, it's not photojournalism, but street photography does have some ethics. Like I wouldn't add something to the photo. I mean, I could add
Mhm.
an alligator over there, these days you can do whatever you want.
But I think of all the pre-digital analog photos that were discovered to be total scandals.
Well, yeah.
Vietnam
Because
era, they were different
because
things
it
like
was
that.
unethical.
Yeah.
To do that, right? And that's what I'm
But those-
asking. Is
But
it
that was
photojournalism.
but that was photojournalism.
that's
right, and-
photojournalism? Yeah. Now,
right, it was supposed to
photojournalism is
be.
different.
But it
And
clearly
street pho-
wasn't.
Yeah, photojournalism is different. You cannot add things and take away things. You can maybe take away, do a little bit of post-processing, but street photography it's not as rigid as photojournalism, but I still think there are some ethics involved in terms of processing,
It's just a cleanup, right? What we're doing, it's nothing major. You're not really
Well,
changing.
cleaning up is one thing, but taking out a human being that's right in the middle of the photo, I'm not so sure about that, and I do it. I've been doing it. Here's an example.
People
And
used to do
sometimes-
this in the darkroom for years. I mean, even Ansel Adams did stuff like that, with dodging and burning and all kinds of techniques in the darkroom. They
It's true. No, hey,
always
listen.
done this.
Listen, you're preaching to the choir. I'm doing this, but I do have some doubts sometimes. Like here's an example. And sometimes the artificial intelligence changes your photo in a way that you didn't expect. Now, here's the original.
Where
On the
was the
subway.
shot, Sam? Which station?
Times Square. The shuttle.
Really?
It's the shuttle. See, it says Times Square.
Oh, the shuttle. The
I'm pretty
shuttle. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the shuttle.
Yeah, it is. It is. I see the S.
So it's a reject, right? But I don't know. I kind of liked the fact that he was stepping out into this. And so I took away this person and it somehow extended the yellow line and changed my whole photo in a way that I kind of liked. Now, again, I find this a little bit unethical because it changed my photo too much. You know, it added stuff. That it wasn't even there. You know, this
I
kind
like
of
it.
beautiful curve.
It's a great
Uh,
photo.
Well, yeah, but AI did half of it. That's the problem. So
Beats reality.
So here we are going into the realm of what is ethical and what isn't. Here's a good example of it. Taking the person away is okay, but you know, changing this yellow into an entirely different thing, into a huge tunnel. I don't know.
Did you try to do it a second time and see what would change? Because that tends to
No.
happen a lot.
Yes,
You know-
and every time you do it, you have three choices, three versions of the same one. Well, we could try it right now. Let me make a virtual copy.
You can keep regenerating beyond
And you
three.
can keep regenerating, yeah. But you have three versions of the same one. Let's go back out of curiosity. Okay, where is the, come on, why isn't showing my, oh. What is going on here? Oh, this is a copy, so there's nothing to go back to, no wonder. We'll go back to the import. Now let me do a virtual copy. Okay, so let's see. First thing, I have to make it a little brighter because I can't even see the damn thing. Okay, let's take her out and see what happens. Take him out too. I'll take everything out of there. And let's see what happens. Very often it puts a different person in there, which is really weird. And usually it's some kind of monsterish looking person. Okay, well, that's a different version. Now let's look at the three versions. There's another version. Well, I think I like this better than the one I got before. All those pillars. Oh, that's a kind of interesting one too.
Down wherever we were.
But you know, again, I'm finding this unethical. It's creating my photo for me. It's adding things that I did not see. I'm not loving this. I don't think I would present this photo. But you know, it's not right. So I could go back, regenerate it, but I think maybe in the selection, by the way, you can go back and reset this. And maybe if I do a very close selection on her, it might leave the stuff, you know, and not do everything. See, now you can subtract, and I might subtract. Oh, didn't I hit subtract? I hit subtract everything that's not her. Make sure I'm not removing anything else, right? And even this here. One thing I found really fun is that you can remove phones from people's hands.
That's
Which
great.
is great, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
because every picture has someone's got the fucking phone in their hand, right? And you end up with something, their hands are doing something, but it's not holding a phone. In fact, we could even try it with this. So let's see what happens with this selection a little closer. See? That's a little better, right?
Sam, do you follow Victoria? I think her last name is Brampton. She goes by the Lightroom Queen.
I've seen, yes, I have seen some of
She
her
had a
stuff.
recent post that talked about this very issue about how to more carefully use the generative AI remove in Lightroom so that you remove what you want to without getting things in there
Yeah, just
that
subtract.
didn't
Just
exist in the
subtract.
first place.
Yeah, it's just doing a careful selection and subtracting everything. I
Yeah.
don't think, I think, as you see, it did make a big difference. So, you know, let me just see if there's any more examples of things that, oh yeah, this photo is quite interesting. Okay, this is my original photo.
Boy, do I know this place.
Yeah, I mean, Charles knows all this stuff. This is his neighborhood.
We're neighbors.
We're neighbors, and you know, generally I shoot in this neighborhood, except over the summer. Oh, during COVID, what happened? I think I told you guys this last time, but I never got to the book about River Ride. During COVID, there weren't that many people on the street, and everyone was wearing masks. And I bought an electric scooter just to get around because I didn't want to go on a bus or a subway, right? I didn't want to catch COVID. And then I decided to go down to the river with my camera, and I shot a whole, for 2 years, I shot photos by the river, and it was a whole different experience. It was street photography, but it was totally different because people were there with a whole different vibe. And I made a book about it called River Ride, which I really like. In any case, Charles recognized this bus stop on 42nd Street. You think you can make a good photo out of this?
Sure.
Let's take a look.
Oh man. And that works in color.
Yes, I think I have a black and white version of it, but the color, yeah, there's a black and white version, but the color I think is better. You think?
Yeah. Yeah, the color works better because of his shirt.
The shirt, yeah, the flag, but everything about it, the colors just don't distract.
That's great.
But can you imagine all the work I did to get that? I mean, can you get an idea? Take a look again. A lot of removing. I removed her. I removed this bag, all these white bags. And by the way, the white plastic bags are always a scourge of my photos. It's like they're so ugly and they're so distracting. And I used to just darken them, but now I just get rid of them. No white bags, right?
Sam,
And
you come in and crop so tightly on some of these. Do you use a program like Gigapixel to?
you know, I
enhance it?
haven't been using gigapixels, but I definitely use Topaz denoise. It's pretty noisy, you know. And I said if I was going to print it, and I wanted to print it, you know, looking normally, it doesn't look noisy, does it? But if I was going to print it large, I would probably would go into gigapixel and try to get some more, you know, get some more resolution out of the thing.
Sam,
Yep.
I have go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna ask a question. I mean, you talk about like taking pictures on the move and being very, very fast.
Yes.
Yet you come into Zoom this close and it's all in focus.
Well,
you know, I can't get anything in focus with a tripod practically.
Part of it is the camera that I use, which is a Sony A6400, has state-of-the-art tracking. It tracks everything. So most of the time, it'll keep things in focus. It locks in, and my cameras could be moving. A lot of the time, my camera's moving because I'm swinging my arms. You know, I have well, have I shown you guys? How do I see? I'm not seeing you guys. What do I have to do?
What kind of
because I'm
camera?
screen sharing. I think that's why I'm not seeing any of you anymore.
What kind of camera did you say it
Well, I was
was?
going to show it to you. I have it right here.
It's a
I wanted
Sony
to-
A6400. It's a crop sensor
Where
mirrorless.
is how do I get back to myself? I'm going to stop sharing for a second, guys.
Yeah.
And I'll go to single view speaker. Oh, I have to be the speaker. But it's still showing Marlene. Come on, that's not right.
You can go up to gallery view.
I'm going to go up to gallery again. And where is my little, my other camera? Oh, wait, maybe it's in the other one.
On the other page, maybe. Let's see, is it?
It's not there anymore. What happened to it? Do you guys see my console?
No.
No.
Yeah,
Where is it?
I see it.
I don't.
Is
I
it
don't-
on?
It's down in
Oh,
the
there it is. I got
corner
it. I got it. I got it. Okay.
below me.
There we go. So if you can pin that, I don't know if you can pin that, but you can see my camera. Now, I use a hand strap, which, let me make it a little tighter. You know, it's amazing. I see all these photographers, street photographers, and they got these, and all these young guys, they all use film and old Leicas. It seems what's fashionable now, and they always have the cameras with a strap around their neck. I don't know what they're doing, how they shoot street photography that way, but it seems fashionable. They want to be like the old guys, and they shoot film with Leica 6s, and it's crazy. But anyway, this is attached to my hand, so I don't even have to hold the camera. But it's, I think I was wearing gloves, so I made it a little looser. Anyway, the camera's attached to my hand, and I have an LCD here that I don't even use half the time because I kind of know the focal length of my lenses. And I'm walking around and I'm basically shooting without looking most of the time. Although occasionally I will look at the LCD, get a little framing, you know, but it's very casual. And sometimes my arm is swinging, so it doesn't look like, you know, it's important for me to be stealth and people not to stop me and ask why I've taken their pictures. So my arms are moving, I'm moving, they're moving. No one ever realizes that I'm taking a photo, but the tracking becomes very important. And this little camera, which is not a high-end camera, I mean, it's under $1,000. And I use this lens most of the time, which is a $100 lens. It's very small, 16 to 50 zoom. I do have a lot of other lenses, but the tracking, I think, is the main thing to answer the original question. If you get a Sony and I think some of the other camera makers have caught up, but they've always been great at autofocus tracking. And I don't worry about, the only thing I worry about when I'm shooting is the picture blown out? Are the highlights too hot? Because then I can't work with them. Or is it in focus? And I would say 90% of my photos are in focus because the tracking is so good. So that's the answer to that question.
Thank you.
Let me just get back to sharing. I guess we're getting near to the end. Is there any other questions you guys have? There's, you know, I have 100 photos that I prepared to show you guys. Let me just see if there's any more that might really be interesting to you. You know, a lot of it is just light. For example, this one. Oh, come on. I have to go into develop mode in order to go back. So this is the original, right? Not a great picture. I find a little cliche, but this is the original. And this is what you do with light. It's very easy. All I did was bring up the subject, bring down the background. Look at the background. So it's almost blown out. You know, I expose for highlights. On my camera, it has this, one of the exposures is exposed for highlights. And I use that most of the time because nothing will ever get blown out. Everything else is a little dark, but doesn't seem to be a big problem if you look at this. So I exposed for the highlight. Oh, what happened? Come on. What did you do? Now I lost the whole photo. Well, you get the idea of exposing the highlights. Color in black and white. This is kind of important. This photo. Why is it doing that? Come on. Oh, I know why. Okay. You have to be in develop mode to go to see do the before and after. Still doing that. Come on. What is it saying that for?
It's a freaking computer. That's
Damn
what.
fucking computers. Jesus. Now this is, oh, maybe it's a copy. Maybe that's why. No, it's not a copy. I'm going to develop, and I'm going into the. That's so strange. That's not supposed to happen. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Okay, so there's my original. Now I did catch a nice moment, obviously, but you can see how the green totally distracts from the photo, right?
Yeah.
Why would you want this in color? There's nothing about the color that's important. So not only I made it black and white, but I made the background darker, and probably all I did. But it's just fooling around with the light, but huge changes makes a lousy photo into a good photo.
Did you mask select those two kids?
No.
You just
photo
darken the background?
The mask select stuff is only about a year, 6 months to a year old, 6 months old. I mean, I didn't have those features till very recently. So I think I just did it with, I had to brush them, or, I did it in a painstaking way, I would say, most likely. Again, these automatic AI features are quite new. Here's an example. Just an example of, now it's not even letting me select these things.
Sam.
Okay. Okay, so there's a photo of, it's kind of overexposed, this couple. Final picture. Okay, well. Oh, I think I may have to move. So abstracting things, I find if you take something and abstract it, and by the way, black and white abstracts it anyway. I think we should try to take the phone out of this guy's hand. Should we try it? You think we can do it?
Good luck.
I hate the phone. So let's see what happens if we
Then, I mean, it
go
really,
like this. What do you think is going to happen if we try to take this phone out of his hand? I'm going to subtract a little bit here. Let's see what happens. It failed. You want to know something funny?
it's clear that he's looking at something, and if
It's
you
true.
remove the phone,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
sort of
Sometimes it
spoils the
works.
context of the image.
I tried to do this before and it failed, and I think it's because it thinks this is a pornographic photo. Because there's no other reason why I wouldn't do it. Maybe because of all the skin and because of the shape of her tush or something. I don't know. It won't let me take away the phone. But
Well,
anyway.
The phone doesn't really, I mean, phones have become something of a photographic trope, but it doesn't bother me in the shot.
No, not really.
It's
not
an
really.
important part of this shot.
It is.
Because
He doesn't care about her.
He's ignoring her beautiful body.
Exactly.
And he's looking at his phone.
No, you're absolutely right. It really is. He's ignoring her beautiful behind there, and he's looking at his phone when he has this gorgeous woman in front. But she's looking at her phone too, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. Hey, Sam, could we see the one that was, I think, right below it with the bulldog on the skateboard?
Yes.
Because I'm a sucker for dogs.
Oh, I'm gonna make a dog book. I have so many dog photos.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You've seen Elliot Erwitt's book, I'm sure.
Oh, that's
Um,
just brilliant.
This is just an example of color versus black and white. This is the
Oh,
original.
Black and white's much better.
I know. Why? What do we need these colors for? They only distract. The yellow thing, the green bottom, the red, it just distracts, and people don't understand it. I don't know. Some people shoot only color. And yes, I did make a whole book of all color photos, but to me, the color was crucial to each photo. But this, I mean, it just, you can kind of see the subject so much better.
It's so funny.
It's an unusual photo.
Oh, that's just great. I love it.
Yeah, well,
But-
this was part of the River Ride book. This was down by the river.
By Chelsea Piers.
By Chelsea Piers, yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
Here's some more dogs. This is another example of just what you do with color. Oh, come on. So this is a
Yeah.
very simple thing. But here, the red shirt is so red it distracts from everything, and the dog's color is not colorful enough. So I kind of reversed it. And I took the saturation down on his shirt and I brought the color up on the dogs, and it's a more interesting photo.
Yeah.
You just can see it better.
Yes.
And, and my whole idea is that when I saw this, I probably saw it this way because your brain makes adjustments for what you want to see and what's interesting. The camera doesn't. The camera doesn't know what the hell it's taking a picture of. So it ends up taking a really dull photo like this, while this probably is closer to reality. And that's, to me, this is why your post process is to try to simulate what your brain saw to begin with. Because the brain, besides the eyes being so much superior to a camera lens, the eyes, have much better resolution and see things, but you do editing with your brain when you look at things. And the camera doesn't. And that's what we try to do in post-processing, is to get closer to what you do with our eyes and our brains. And to me, it's half of photography is about this. And as you can see, most of these photos
What
on the
about
camera are not so great.
Sam? I like what you just did with the colors. What about the green over there, across the street from that guy? Would you tone that a little bit?
Of course, I certainly could. Hey, in the process of trying to choose photos for this presentation, I went back for a few years just looking around, and I would say half the photos I want to re-edit. Partly because I have new tools now, and partly because I'm seeing things that, gee, I could have done a lot more with this, and it's a little frustrating because it's a never-ending process. So how would you suggest I do this?
Well, and is the brightness up in the right, and then down near the curb?
Okay, one thing I might try first. I might just try to create a new mask for the background. Let's see how it does it. Although I don't know what it's going to consider the background. Oh yeah, everything but him and the dog is background. So we can take down saturation. We can take down highlights.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's better already. I like the way they pop now.
Yeah, I could take it all the way down. And now they're popping a lot more.
Yeah, in the color mixer, you can use the eyedropper to just select a specific color and then just drop the saturation that way.
Yes.
Yes.
If I go to saturation, well, do I want to luminance or saturation? I can do saturation just by hitting the saturation button and then hitting this dropper.
Yeah.
And now, well, it's making it darker, but it's also, oh yeah, it's not, well, it's making it darker by taking down the saturation. But I can hit luminance here.
It doesn't have, yeah.
And I can make it a little brighter if I want. I love this dragging. Yeah, probably a good idea to get rid of this bright spot, and that bright spot. Pretty easy to do. I just mask. It has this nice objects, and I use this most of the time. You just select something like that, and it finds it. See? Although it missed the top, but I could just add that by adding a little bit here.
You know, basically the whole
Add with
idea is to make the photo look the way you saw it, that made you go, to make you want to take a
Exactly.
picture in the first place.
Exactly.
Yes.
So now I
But
can bring
the
the highlights down
dog-
on that, or
Oh,
bring the
sorry.
exposure down on that. See, get rid of this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do the
But
same
the-
thing here.
The
Yeah.
dog on the right lost its color.
Yes. Right in the one in the front on the right.
Oh, yes, because I probably didn't notice something, and he lost its color. Yeah, I could make these dogs all different colors if I wanted to, but I don't think I want to.
This is the only dog walker I've seen in New York who just walks one breed.
Yeah,
We
no,
noticed
it's
that.
true. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
walks one breed, and they're all gorgeous looking dogs.
Yes.
What breed is that? Are those Airedales? No.
No,
What are the breeds? I'm not a dog
I
person.
don't know
but
what it is either.
Some
don't
kind
know
of
what-
terrier,
Hounds.
large terriers.
Maybe Labradoodle?
No.
Not a Labradoodle? Okay.
Yeah, they're definitely some sort of doodle, but what kind of
It's a
doodle? is
doodle of
another
some
question.
type.
Yeah,
I don't know
with-
what it is.
With
They've got
tight,
some poodle in them, that's for sure.
yeah, with tight curls on any dog these days,
They're doodles.
it's a doodle until proven otherwise.
I would show you my dog, but I think he's sleeping in the other room. Usually he's not happy when I'm working on photos. He wants to be part of the action. He doesn't like being down so low when I'm up here, but well, so I think, are there any more here that I could show you? I think you've got a pretty good idea of what I do. And oh, okay, here's this is, you want a dog picture, you got one here.
Oh, that's great.
Now, I want to show you the original. I hope it will do it. And it shows you, oh, it's sunny. Okay, I'm going
Yeah.
to show you my, took away a lot of things and brought out a lot of things.
Wow.
And I'm going to show you my doggy. Come on, honey, come here. Oh, it's my boy. This is my boy, Sonny. And he is a wonderful little guy.
What
Yes,
is
he
he?
was
What
napping.
breed?
He's a Shih Tzu.
Shih Tzu. Looks
They
like one of
are,
those toy robot things that you wind up the thing on this
looks
back.
like a toy. He looks like a stuffed animal. He is so adorable that he gets away with everything. You just cannot say no to this face. I mean,
Okay, are there any more questions for Sam? Photo questions?
yes.
Any?
Anything, guys?
I'll just ask one, and that is, maybe you could switch things around and leave the phones in the picture and get rid of the people.
Well, I certainly get rid of a lot of people anyway.
Yeah.
But again, I'm having some, I'm interested in your ideas about the ethics of it. Is it cool to just get rid of all the people, all the things you don't want in a photo and just leave what you find interesting? I'm not so sure. With street photography, with fine art, you can do whatever you want. You can add things, you can layer things, you can add some other photos, but
You could take
I'm
it
not sure.
and say you did it at like 5 o'clock in the morning when the sun was coming up in the summertime.
I'll tell you, it's just so much fun because it's
They're
magic.
they're your images, so you can do whatever you want with them.
Well, I know that. I mean, legally, I can, but I do have
But
a sense of,
even, but so the ethics of it is up to your own
well,
personal value system.
Helen, would you add something to a street photo?
No,
Okay, there you go.
but I would remove as much as
Yeah,
possible. So
yeah, so it's, there's a fine line. Now, you wouldn't add anything, even though it's my photo and you know, I can do whatever I want, but adding obviously is unethical. And
Sam, when you're running and gunning, do you use auto ISO?
Yes,
And you just
yes.
you let it float up to whatever it needs to.
Yeah, the only thing I change is shutter speed
Hmm.
according to the amount of light. I want to get as high a shutter speed as possible, but it's auto ISO, exposure is automatic.
But your exposure is biased under at least a couple of stops, right? To protect the highlights.
No, no. This camera has highlight exposure mode
Oh,
where it
highlight
exposes for the
priority.
priority. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it lights up. I have a zebra thing which shows me the highlights
Mhm.
anyway. But this, I don't even have to worry about that. It shows me it
What's the
exposes
camera?
for the highlights.
What's the camera you use?
It's a Sony A6400. I can make it a little brighter here.
Choices.
To me, it's the ideal street camera because
No,
it's small. It has terrific.
It's a mirrorless.
Also, it doesn't. The LCD comes at some of these LCDs now are coming out the back, are coming out the side because they're full. What do they call it?
Flip screen.
Articulated, fully articulated.
What was
It's
the model
terrible.
number again? The Sony.
A6400.
Thank you.
There's three models you might look at. There's an A6100, which is pretty much the same with maybe a few features less and not as good a build. Then there's the 6400, which is the one I have. And then there's the 6700, which has stabilization IS built in to the camera. And is a little bigger and heavier, but it's the top of the line of this range. But that has the LCD coming out the side. To me, is a deal killer. It makes the camera look twice as big, which is the last thing I want. You know, they have fully articulated screens that come out the side, so you have a camera that looks this wide rather than one out in the back. So, to me, this is perfect. It's small, it's tiny, but then again, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've developed a way of doing it. And, you know, I feel very comfortable with the camera and I feel very comfortable out in the street. And I talked about a lot of my process in the last presentation that we did. But that's about half of it, is this being out there on the street and this dance that I'm doing and going into this different mode of you know, it's some kind of flow. That's a cliche, but there's some kind of flow out there, and I'm moving and they're moving, and it's a little like a dance. And I did come from shooting dancers, so to me, it's the same feeling of a dance out there in the street. It's a choreography, and I'm part of it. And then I shoot this material, and I don't look at it for a week or two at least. So when I come to it, it's fresh. It's almost like someone else shot it. Oh, look at that. It's kind of interesting. And then I make the photograph. Almost a whole different process, very not related to the shooting. And I love both. I love being out there doing it. And it's not the way other people do it. I mean, a lot of street photographers, they think, get it the way you want, shoot it, and then leave it. You know, it's kind of a aesthetic, leave it the way it is. But no, that's not me. I'm just gathering raw material, and then I come back, and this is where I turn it into a photograph.
When you're shooting for highlights, does that setting, do you keep it on, or does it depend on how light the day is, what the surrounding conditions are?
Good question. Usually if I look around and I see there's some bright spots around,
Yeah.
especially on a sunny day,
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot for highlights. But sometimes if it's very shady and it's a relatively even dark place, I'll turn that highlights off and I'll use a different exposure mode.
Yeah.
Either full camera or center weighted or something else.
Yeah.
But for me, the thing I worry about most is blowing out stuff in the photo, because then I have nothing to work with there. It's gone, you know.
Right.
And I can always bring up the shadows. I can bring up stuff, and if it gets a little noisy, I can always go into noise reduction and get rid of the noise. So it's not something I'm too worried about. So there's only two things I worry about: out of focus, blowing out highlights. And if I use this highlight mode, the highlights don't get blown out. And the tracking usually does a pretty good job. Now, of course, I do want to get the shutter speed as high as possible. So depending on the brightness, I will go as low as 320, even 250, which is pretty low. But it does have stabilization, which I somehow think helps, especially at lower shutter speeds. And I'm moving my camera. I think the stabilization helps. But I'd like to shoot at 500th if I can. That pretty much stops action. But the tracking, I think, is really what does it. It locks on to something moving, and it keeps them in focus. Because I would say 75% of the time, things are moving out there. I'm moving, subjects are moving, and it's very tricky keeping things in focus.
Sam, do you have a preference for time of day you like to shoot?
It's a good question, Charles. I like sunny days. And there's more shadows, and there's more choices as far as light. Although I like overcast too. You know, I really love to shoot at night, and that's sunny. See, I told you he doesn't like it sometimes. Come here. You want to go on my lap? Come here. Come here. Go on my lap. Come here. I was just looking at this. I'll let my wife here, but I was looking at this 16 millimeter, a very cheap 16 millimeter 1.8 lens from some Japanese company. I don't know how good it is, but it was only like $200. And I like shooting at night a lot. And none of my lens, I have a 35 millimeter 1.8, but that's not quite wide enough for me. It ends up to be 50 millimeter, which I don't really love. I like to shoot wide because of the way I shoot. I need to be wide because I don't, I'm going to have to frame things after the fact, and so I like shooting, and I like shooting anytime. It doesn't really matter to me.
Okay.
Every time I go out, I'm looking around at the light, at subjects, at anything. So it doesn't matter.
So thank you very much, Sam.
Okay, guys, my
It was
pleasure.
great.
My pleasure.
Great
Thank
show.